Welcome back. In the last video we saw how we can add the entries to our SQLite database, and now let's have a look at how we can retrieve them. And you already know how to do that if you followed along with the course, but let's still do that in this video. So where we are going to need that is in our main activity, but where we are going to pretty much create the function in order to get all the happy places is going to be in our database handler. So here we have the function which creates the entry, but then let's create one function which will retrieve the entries. So I'm going to call this function get happy places list, and it will return an array list of happy place models, so of our happy place there. And now in there I want to have the list, so I'm going to create a happy place list of array list happy place model, which will be an array list of happy place models. Of course, at that point this would be redundant, so we already know that it's going to be a array list of happy place models, but still, as you can see, you can use both ways anyways. All right, then we need to have the query that we want to run, and as we want to have all the entries, it's just going to be a very simple one. So I'm just gonna say select star from our table happy place. So we're just gonna get all the entries from our table. Then we need to have a database that we can read from. So I'm just going to call it db this.readable database. And then we will try to get the entries. And of course, something can go wrong when you do that. So try and catch is always a good idea here. And I'm just going to add the catch block here directly, which will potentially cause a SQLite exception. And if that happens, I want to catch that, and I want to execute the SQL or the select query that we created here, and then just return the array and empty array list. Okay, so if nothing went as we expected it, then just return an empty array list. And if everything worked, then I want to return my happy place list. So here return happy place list. Now of course this list will be empty at that point, so we are currently returning an empty happy place list. But now what we want to do is of course to fill this list. And what do we fill it with? Well, we fill it with all of the entries that we have from this happy place model style that we have here. But of course we are going to need them in here, and we use the cursor in order to go through every single entry that we have selected from our table. All right, so let's create this cursor, which will be of type cursor. And here we need to import cursor. All right, import it, and then db.raw query. So we run a raw query, which is our select query. Then we also need to pass in the selection arguments, and I'm just gonna pass in null because that's fine as well. We don't have any specific options that we want to set here. All right, and now we first of all move to the first entry of our cursor, so the first row, so to speak. So move to first, and if that works, then do the following. So run a do while loop. All right, so do while there are still entries. So cursor dot move to next. So for this we say, okay, just run through the whole list of entries that you have. So through every single entry that you have in the database that came from this select statement or the select query that we used here. And then in here, what we do is we create places. So for every single entry, we create a new place. So for every iteration of our do while loop. So what I can do is I can create a new place, which will be of type happy place model. Now, of course, our happy place model needs a lot of information, as we can see here. It needs the ID, it needs the title, the image, and so forth. Okay, so in order to get those, what we can do is we can read it from the cursor. So cursor get int, for example, if you want to get an integer, cursor dot get column index, and then here we need to pass in the column index, which was our ID, and it has to be a string, of course. So in order to make sure that I'm using the right name, I go here, and it was underscore ID. Okay, so I have to be super careful here. So either I use underscore ID or I do it correctly and I use the name of the column. So our string that we created just for these purposes. Okay, so that is something that is super important to keep in mind, because especially with strings, things can go wrong. All right, so the first entry is we look at our ID here. Okay, the key ID. Then the next one is going to be our cursor get string, and here it's cursor dot get column index at the key title, and so forth. Okay, so we now need to do that for every single entry here, and of course I was missing the bracket there. So instead of me typing all of those cursor gets so and so, I'm just gonna paste them in here. So it's going to be all of those. All right, so get string for the title, for the image, for the description, the date, the location, and then get double for the latitude and longitude. All right, and by this we create a new place. Now what is left to do? Well, what we want to return, we can see that here, is going to be a happy place list. So what is this happy place list? Well, it's a list of happy place models. So we just created the new happy place model. Now let's add this place that we just created to our list. So here, happy place list dot add place. All right, and now after all of that, we need to close our cursor. So cursor dot close, so that our program doesn't run into any errors and problems. All right, so this is our helper method, which will allow us to get the place list. Now we need to have one in our main activity, which does the same thing pretty much, but on a slightly different level. So in our main activity, I also want to have a function which gets all of those happy places. So I'm going to create a new function here, private fun get happy places list from local database. Okay, so pretty long name, but that's what it does. It gets it from the local database, which is our SQLite. So here we need to create an object of our DB handler in order to call this function. Okay, so this function that we just created, this get happy place list. All right, so in order to do so, value DB handler, so I'm going to call it, will be a database handler object. And we need to pass in the context, which is this. Now we need to import database handler, even though it's a class that we use ourselves, but it's not in the same directory anymore. So if we look at it, you can see here, database is in a different directory than our activities, than our main activity in this case. So we need to import it. And you can see that it says, okay, it's inside of happy places database handler. So here I get, or I create a happy place list, which is going to be of type array list happy place model. And where do I get that from? From our DB handler dot get happy place list. All right, so this is going to be our happy place list, and it's going to be full already with all of the entries. So what we now need to do is we need to put all of those into a recycler view, because we want to display it on a recycler view later on. But we don't have a recycler view class yet, so we'll need to implement that later on. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write it to the log. So I'm just going to say if get happy place list is not empty, so the size is bigger than 0, or greater than 0. If that's the case, then go through the whole list and give me all of the values. So in here, I'm just going to say log.e, and here it should give me the title, which will be i.title. And of course, we need to import log here. There we are. And now I'm going to keep it simple. I don't want to do that for all of the entries. Okay, so I'm just going to say the title and maybe also the description. And this will be i.description. So we're going through this for loop, and I is going to be the happy place that we're currently looking at. And we just get the title of the happy place that we're currently looking at and then the description. And of course, at one point, we'll need to call this function. And I'm just going to call it in the onCreate method. Okay, so in there, I'm just going to call it straight at the start. It should give me all of the happy places from the database. All right, and at that point, we can test it. So let's do that. All right, so the activity started. Let's look at our log and look for title. And we can see title, test, title, and test 3. And these were the 3 titles that I entered. Then we have the description. And we can see we have all 3 descriptions: test description, and then test description 3. Okay, so all of them are there. So now we can actually get the data from the database. Okay, so that's it. In the next video, we are going to prepare the recycler view for the application to display all of that data in a readable manner, because currently it doesn't, right? So see you in the next one.